5 years had passed since Ambassador Han Jiwoo made the decision that saved humanity from walking the path of the ancient inheritors, and the choice had not been easy because it required humans to accept that some knowledge was too dangerous to pursue, and that unlimited technological advancement was not always worth the price that came with ultimate power. Dr. Park Ji-ho now worked aboard the research station called New Harmony that floated in space between Earth and the Vellani homeworld, and human scientists collaborated with alien researchers to develop what they called reality-safe technology, and the work was challenging because it required understanding the fundamental forces of the universe well enough to avoid accidentally damaging them. The joint research had produced breakthroughs that neither humans nor aliens could have achieved alone, and Dr. Park's understanding of magnetic field manipulation, combined with Vellani knowledge of space-time geometry, had led to the development of weapons that could actually repair the ancient tears in reality left behind by the Inheritor Wars. Captain Yu Junho commanded the first joint patrol fleet that protected trade routes throughout local space, and his ships were crewed by humans and aliens working together to defend merchant vessels from pirates and to respond to emergencies across a region spanning dozens of star systems, and the cooperation had proved that different species could work together when they shared common goals. The Karathi hegemony had been the most skeptical of the alien civilizations about humanity's commitment to avoiding dangerous technology, but Admiral Korthak had gradually come to respect human military discipline and innovative thinking, and Karathi warriors now served alongside human soldiers in defense of worlds that had once been considered too dangerous for contact with emerging species. Admiral Lee Suman represented Earth on the Galactic Council, and she had learned to navigate the complex politics of dozens of civilizations while advocating for human interests, and she had discovered that the galaxy was far more complicated and interesting than anyone on Earth had ever imagined, and that cooperation often achieved more than competition. The ancient scars left by the Inheritor Wars were slowly healing as human technology provided new solutions to problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millions of years, and Dr. Park's modified railgun designs had been adapted to create tools that could seal space-time tears and repair damage to the fundamental structure of reality. Engineer Kim Dae-ho had become the galaxy's leading expert on controlled space-time manipulation, and his theoretical work had shown how the dangerous technology that led to inheritor weapons could be redirected toward beneficial applications, and he had designed systems that could accelerate healing of damaged space-time and create stable passages through dimensions that had been considered permanently inaccessible. The ethereal collective had begun emerging from their self-imposed isolation for the first time in 3 million years, and First Observer had established communication with human scientists and shared knowledge about the deep structure of reality that had been hidden from physical beings, and the collaboration had opened new fields of research that neither species could have explored. Alone, Dr. Choi Mina had become Earth's primary expert on galactic communications, and she coordinated the information networks that allowed dozens of civilizations to share scientific data and coordinate responses to threats. And she had learned that the galaxy was connected by communication systems that operated faster than light and linked species across impossible distances. The trade networks that had been disrupted by humanity's emergence as a potential inheritor species had not only been restored, but had expanded to include Earth and Luna and human colonies throughout the solar system, and Ambassador Han had negotiated agreements that gave humanity access to galactic markets while ensuring that human technology remained focused on beneficial applications. Captain Yu's patrol fleet had responded to 17 emergencies in the past year and had saved colonies from natural disasters and protected trade convoys from pirate attacks, and had participated in joint operations with alien military forces, and the cooperation had proved that humans could be trusted with military responsibility when it was guided by wisdom rather than ambition for ultimate power. The research station New Harmony had become a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together, and its laboratories had produced technologies that could heal damaged planets and restore ecosystems that had been destroyed by ancient wars and repair the lingering effects of weapons that had wounded reality itself. Dr. Park looked through the observation deck at stars that no longer seemed threatening, and he reflected on how humanity's first railgun shot had forced an entire galaxy to evolve beyond its fears and prejudices, and had created opportunities for cooperation that would not have existed if humans had chosen the path of unlimited technological advancement. The galaxy hummed with activity as trade ships carried goods between star systems and research vessels, explored new frontiers, and communication networks carried messages across vast distances. And the silence that had followed Thunder's voice had been replaced by the sounds of civilizations working together toward common goals. Admiral Lee attended council meetings where representatives from 47 species debated policies that affected billions of beings across thousands of worlds. And she had learned to see problems from perspectives that no human had ever imagined, and to find solutions that balanced the needs of species with completely different biologies and cultures and philosophies. The ancient inheritor homeworld had been declared a restricted zone for 3 million years, but joint human-alien expeditions had begun exploring the ruins and learning from the mistakes of the past, and Dr. Park had walked through cities where reality itself had been twisted by weapons that should never have been built, and had seen firsthand what happened when technological advancement proceeded without wisdom. Engineer Kim's latest project involved developing technology that could prevent any future species from accidentally discovering dangerous space-time manipulation, and the system would monitor subspace distortions throughout the galaxy and provide early warning when emerging civilizations began experimenting with reality-warping physics, and would offer guidance and education before fear led to conflict. The Karathi military had adapted human tactical innovations and combined them with alien defensive technologies to create peacekeeping forces that were more effective than anything either species could have built alone, and Admiral Korthak had admitted that cooperation produced better results than conquest when the goal was long-term stability rather than short-term dominance. Chancellor Valan of the Vallani Empire had become one of humanity's strongest supporters on the Galactic Council, and he often spoke about how Earth's choice to pursue cooperation rather than unlimited power had strengthened every civilization in the galaxy and had opened possibilities for advancement that had been closed since the Inheritor Wars. The ethereal collective had shared memories that dated back millions of years, and First Observer had shown human scientists visions of the galaxy before the Inheritor Wars, when hundreds of species had explored the universe together and had built wonders that touched the fundamental forces of creation and had achieved harmony between technological advancement and wisdom. Dr. Choi coordinated research, projects that involved scientists from dozens of species, and the collaboration had produced discoveries about the nature of reality that no single civilization could have achieved, and the knowledge was being used to heal ancient wounds and prevent future catastrophes, and to build a foundation for galactic civilization that could last for millions of years. Captain Yu's newest assignment involved training mixed crews of humans and aliens to operate ships that used technology developed through joint research, and the vessels could travel faster than light without disturbing space-time, and could defend entire star systems without threatening the stability of reality, and represented the kind of advancement that was possible when power was balanced with responsibility. The patrol fleet had discovered 3 new species in the past year, and each first contact had been handled with protocols developed through human-alien cooperation, and the new civilizations had been welcomed into the galactic community and educated about the dangers of certain types of technological development before they could accidentally threaten themselves or others. Ambassador Han reflected on the choice she had made 5 years earlier and realized that humanity had gained far more through cooperation than they could ever have achieved through unlimited pursuit of power, and the galaxy was richer and safer because one species had chosen wisdom over weapons and had proved that the cycle of inheritor catastrophes could be broken. Dr. Park's current research focused on understanding the fundamental nature of space-time itself, and his work with alien scientists had revealed that reality was far more complex and beautiful than humans had ever imagined, and that the universe contained infinite possibilities for species that chose to work together rather than seek dominance over each other. The galaxy was no longer silent, and the sounds that filled space were not the screams of weapons that could wound reality, but the songs of civilizations that had learned to balance power with wisdom and had chosen to build rather than. Captain Lee Bin stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance and watched the massive alien fleet appear on his screens. The sight made his stomach turn cold. 50,000 ships stretched across space like a metal storm cloud, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. The Vorthan Empire had come to deliver their final message to Earth. Li Bin had fought aliens before, but never like this. The Vorthans were different from the small raiding parties and scout ships that sometimes crossed into human space. These ships gleamed with advanced technology that made human vessels look like toys. Their hulls shimmered with energy shields that could stop any weapon Earth possessed. Plasma cannons jutted from their sides like the teeth of massive predators. The communication screen flickered to life and showed a Vorthan commander. The alien's face was long and narrow with dark blue skin and 4 yellow eyes that glowed like stars. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Primitive humans of the third planet, I am Fleet Commander Zektar of the Vorthan Empire. Your species has been found guilty of territorial expansion without permission from the Galactic Council. You have built colonies on worlds that belong to superior civilizations. You have refused to acknowledge your place as a lesser species. Li Bin felt anger rise in his chest but kept his face calm. The Vorthans had been saying this for years. Every time humans built a new colony or explored a new star system, the aliens complained. They claimed that humans were too young and too stupid to deserve space beyond their home planet. Your punishment has been decided, the Vorthan continued. You have 72 standard hours to surrender all outer colonies to Vorthan control. You will also accept permanent oversight of your homeworld. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why the Galactic Council chose us to enforce their will. The screen went dark. Li Bin stared at the empty display for a long moment. 72 hours to give up everything humans had worked for. 3 days to choose between slavery and death. Admiral Kim Tae's voice crackled over the communication system from Earth Defense Command. All ship commanders report to emergency conference. We need to discuss our options. Li Bin knew there were no good options. Earth's entire military consisted of 847 ships. Most were small patrol craft or cargo haulers with basic weapons attached. The biggest warships carried kinetic cannons that fired metal slugs at high speed. The newest ships had experimental fusion drives that could barely match Vorthan scout vessels. In the conference room on Earth, military leaders gathered around a massive table. Li Bin joined by video link from his ship. Admiral Kim Tae looked older than his 50 years, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. Commander Yoon Hana sat to his right, her fighter pilot uniform crisp despite the emergency. Major Song Kyu represented the Special Forces, while Dr. Park Nari spoke for the Science Division. The numbers are simple, Admiral Kim Tae began. They have 50,000 ships. We have less than 900. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. A single Vorthan destroyer could probably take out 10 of our best cruisers. Commander Yoon Hana leaned forward. My pilots are ready. To fight. We can use speed and surprise to cause damage. Against what? Major Song Kyu asked. Their shields can stop our missiles before they get close. Their sensors can track our ships from 3 solar systems away. This isn't a fight we can win with courage alone. Dr. Park Nari had been quiet during the discussion, but now she cleared her throat. There might be another way. All eyes turned to the scientist. She was younger than most people in the room, barely 30, but her work on quantum physics had earned respect throughout the military. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her lab coat looked like she had been working for days without rest. I've been developing something in secret, she said. A weapon that could level the playing field. Admiral Kim Tae raised an eyebrow. What kind of weapon? Dr. Park Nari took a deep breath. A quantum cascade device. It can create a chain reaction in stellar matter. Basically, it can make a star explode. The room fell silent. Li Bin felt his heart skip a beat. A weapon that could destroy stars was beyond anything humans had imagined. Are you talking about a supernova? Commander Yoon Hana asked. Controlled stellar collapse, Dr. Park Nari corrected. The device creates quantum instability in the star's core. The star burns through its fuel in minutes instead of millions of years. The result is a massive explosion that destroys everything in the inner system. Major Song Kyu shook his head. That's insane. We'd be destroying our own sun. And ourselves with it, Admiral Kim Tae added. Dr. Park Nari nodded. Yes, that's the problem. The device has to be delivered directly into the star's corona. Nothing can survive that kind of radiation and gravity. Whoever carries it out doesn't come back. Li Bin understood immediately. It was a suicide weapon, a way to take the Vorthon fleet down with them. He thought about his wife and daughter safe in the outer colonies. At least they would survive if Earth died taking the aliens with them. "How do we know it would work?" Admiral Kim Tae asked. "I've run the calculations 1,000 times," Dr. Park Nari replied. "The quantum cascade is based on solid physics. The Vorthons are arrogant enough to position their command ships close to our sun to show their power. They think human technology is too primitive to threaten them." Commander Yoon Hana studied the data on her tablet. "What about the outer planets? Mars, Jupiter, the colonies?" "They would survive," Dr. Park Nari said. "The explosion would expand the habitable zone. The outer colonies would actually get more energy than they do now." The room fell quiet again, as everyone considered the implications. They were talking about the most desperate gamble in human history. Destroy their homeworld to save their species. "We need to vote," Admiral Kim Tae said finally. "All in favor of developing this option?" One by one, hands rose around the table. Li Bin raised his hand on the video screen. It was unanimous. Dr. Park Nari gathered her papers. "I'll need 48 hours to build the device. We'll also need a ship that can get close to the sun without the Vorthons getting suspicious. Use a mining vessel," Major Song Kyu suggested. "Something that looks like civilian traffic fleeing the system." Admiral Kim Tae turned to Li Bin on the screen. "Captain, I know this is a lot to ask." Li Bin had already made his decision. "I'll take it. The Defiance is too recognizable, but I can transfer to another ship. A smaller crew would be better anyway." "How many people would you need?" Commander Yoon Hana asked. 200 minimum," Li Bin replied. "Enough to handle navigation, engineering, and weapons if we get intercepted." Dr. Park Nari looked up from her notes. "Captain, you understand this is a one-way mission? The radiation near the sun will kill anyone who gets that close." Li Bin nodded. "I understand. But if we don't do this, the Vorthons will kill us all anyway. At least this way we take them with us." The meeting ended with grim determination. Earth had 72 hours to decide between surrender and suicide. Dr. Park Nari returned to her lab to build humanity's most terrible weapon. Admiral Kim Tae began preparing the fleet for what might be their final battle. Commander Yoon Hana started planning diversionary attacks to keep Vorthon attention away from the real threat. Li Bin returned to his quarters and wrote a letter to his family. He told them he loved them, and that what happened next was to keep them free. He sealed the message and marked it for delivery only if Earth was destroyed. Outside his window, the Vorthon fleet waited like vultures circling a dying animal. They had no idea that the humans were planning to burn down the entire solar system rather than surrender. In 60 hours, one way or another, everything would change forever. Dr. Park Nari had not slept in 36 hours. Her laboratory deep inside the Earth Defense Command bunker looked like a storm had hit it. Cables snaked across the floor between quantum computers that hummed with processing power. Mathematical equations covered every wall in her handwriting. The quantum cascade device sat in the center of it all, looking surprisingly small for something that could kill a star. The device was about the size of a briefcase, made of crystalline matrices that could survive the incredible heat near the sun. Dr. Park Nari had used every piece of advanced physics humanity knew to create it. The quantum field generators were based on research that was supposed to take another 50 years to complete. She had compressed 5 decades of scientific progress into 2 days of desperate work. Engineer Cho Dae arrived at the lab carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a worried expression. He was Dr. Park Nari's closest colleague and the only person who truly understood how the device worked. His knowledge of quantum drives and exotic matter made him essential to the mission. "The calculations still look good," he said, handing her the coffee. "But I'm worried about the delivery system. Getting this thing close enough to the sun's core is going to be incredibly difficult." Dr. Park Nari took a grateful sip of coffee. "That's Captain Li Bin's problem now. Our job is to make sure the device works when it gets there." "Have you told him how close he needs to get?" Engineer Cho Dae asked. "Within the corona itself, about 1 million kilometers from the surface. Dr. Park Nari pulled up a holographic display of the sun. The quantum cascade needs to start in the convection zone where the stellar matter is dense enough to sustain the chain reaction. Engineer Cho Day whistled softly. That's a death sentence. Nothing can survive that kind of radiation and gravitational stress. I know. Dr. Park Nari's voice was quiet. Captain Lee Bin knows too. He volunteered anyway. Across the city, Captain Lee Bin stood in the military spaceport, looking at his new ship. The last light had been a mining vessel until yesterday. It was ugly and functional, designed to haul asteroids and operate in dangerous conditions. The engineers had stripped out the mining equipment and installed the best radiation shielding Earth possessed. It still would not be enough to protect anyone who got too close to the sun. Major Song Q walked up beside him. 200 volunteers. That's what you asked for, right? Lee Bin nodded. What did you tell them? The truth. One-way mission to save humanity. They lined up anyway. Major Song Q shook his head in amazement. Actually, we had 3,000 volunteers. Had to turn most of them away. Lieutenant Ryu Min approached carrying a communications device. She was young, barely 25, with the quick movements of someone trained in military communications. Her job would be to maintain contact with Earth during the mission and coordinate the final attack. Sir, the Vorthons have been monitoring our communications, she reported. They're treating this like a joke. Their command staff thinks humans are too primitive to pose any real threat. Lee Bin smiled grimly. Good. Let them think that. The longer they underestimate us, the better our chances. Dr. Park Nari arrived at the spaceport with the quantum cascade device locked in a special containment unit. She looked exhausted, but determined. Engineer Cho Day followed her, carrying backup components and diagnostic equipment. This is it, Dr. Park Nari said, setting down the containment unit. Humanity's most dangerous weapon. Don't drop it. What happens if we do? Lieutenant Ryu Min asked. Nothing immediately, Engineer Cho Day replied. The device is completely safe until activated. You could use it as a paperweight if you wanted. Dr. Park Nari connected her tablet to the device and ran through the final checks. The activation sequence requires 3 separate authorization codes. Captain Lee Bin has one, Engineer Cho Day has another, and I've programmed the third into Lieutenant Ryu Min's communications system. Why 3 codes? Major Song Q asked. Safety measure, Dr. Park Nari explained. This weapon is too powerful to risk accidental activation. All 3 codes must be entered within 60 seconds of each other, or the device locks down permanently. Captain Lee Bin studied the crew manifest on his tablet. 200 of Earth's best military personnel had volunteered for certain death. Pilots, engineers, gunners, medics, communications specialists. Each one knew they were not coming home. Commander Yoon Hana arrived with the final mission briefings. Her fighter squadron would provide cover during the launch and create diversions to keep Vorthon attention-focused elsewhere. Her pilots had their own dangerous job, but at least they had a chance of survival. The Vorthons have positioned their command ships in close orbit around Earth, she reported. Their arrogance is working in our favor. They want to be close enough to watch our surrender. How close? Captain Lee Bin asked. Within 10 million kilometers of the sun. Close enough to be caught in the supernova blast. Commander Yoon Hana smiled coldly. They're so confident in their superiority that they're not even maintaining a safe distance. Dr. Park Nari looked up from her final equipment checks. That's perfect. The quantum cascade will reach maximum intensity within 15 million kilometers. Every ship in the inner system will be destroyed. Lieutenant Ryu Min raised her hand. What about the outer colonies? Mars, Jupiter, the asteroid mining stations? They'll survive, Engineer Cho Day assured her. The blast will actually improve conditions in the outer system. More energy, better solar wind dynamics. The colonies might even prosper. Major Song Q had been reviewing tactical data. The Vorthans are scanning everything that leaves Earth orbit, but they're not being very thorough. They expect civilian ships to flee the system. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, passenger transports. The last light should blend in with the evacuation traffic. Captain Lee Bin gathered his crew for the final briefing. 200 volunteers crowded into the ship's main cargo bay. Their faces showed determination mixed with fear. Everyone knew what they were signing up for. "We have one job," Li Bin began. "Get this device to the sun and activate it. The Vorthons think they can force humanity to surrender. They're about to learn that some things are worth dying for." A young pilot raised her hand. "Captain, what about our families?" "The outer colonies will be safe," Li Bin replied. "Our sacrifice ensures they stay free. That's what matters." Engineer Cho Day stepped forward. "The ship's systems have been modified for this mission. We have enhanced radiation shielding, backup power systems, and emergency life support. None of it will save us once we get close to the sun, but it should keep us alive long enough to complete the mission." Dr. Park Nari addressed the crew next. "The quantum cascade device is foolproof. Even if ship systems fail, even if we're all dead, the device will still activate on schedule. The Vorthons cannot stop it once the countdown begins." Lieutenant Ryu Min checked her communications equipment. "I'll maintain contact with Earth as long as possible. Admiral Kim Tae wants regular updates on our progress." Commander Yoon Hana made the final announcement. "My fighters will escort you out of Earth orbit and then create diversions to keep Vorthan scouts busy. Once you're on course for the sun, you're on your own." The crew dispersed to their stations. Captain Li Bin took one last look at Earth through the viewport. The blue and white planet looked peaceful despite the alien fleet surrounding it. In a few hours, Earth would be gone forever, along with everything humans had built there. Dr. Park Nari sealed the quantum cascade device in its final housing. The crystalline matrices glowed softly with contained energy. Somewhere in that innocent-looking box was the power to destroy stars. She had created humanity's ultimate weapon, and she prayed they would never need to use anything like it again. The last light's engines came online with a deep rumble. Captain Li Bin felt the ship lift off from the spaceport and climb toward space. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead lay the sun, waiting to become humanity's funeral pyre and the Vorthon Empire's grave. The most desperate gamble in human history had begun. The last light drifted through space, disguised as just another refugee ship fleeing the solar system. Captain Li Bin watched the navigation displays as they slowly approached the sun. The mining vessel moved at a careful pace, trying to look like frightened civilians instead of a military strike team on a suicide mission. Engineer Cho Day monitored the radiation levels from his station. The numbers were already climbing as they got closer to the star that gave Earth life. Soon those same radiation levels would kill everyone aboard, but for now the ship's enhanced shielding was holding. "Distance to target zone?" Captain Li Bin asked. 40 million kilometers in closing," Lieutenant Ryu Min reported from her communication station. "The Vorthons are still ignoring us. Their scanners show us as a standard mining vessel with civilian refugees." 3 days had passed since they left Earth orbit. The crew had settled into a quiet routine, knowing that each day brought them closer to death. Some played cards in the recreation areas. Others wrote letters to family members they would never see again. A few spent time in the small chapel that someone had set up in an unused storage room. Dr. Park Nari checked the quantum cascade device for the 100th time. The crystalline matrices remained stable, showing no signs of damage from the journey. The weapon that could kill stars sat quietly in its containment housing, waiting for its moment to change galactic history. "Any word from Earth?" Captain Li Bin asked. Lieutenant Ryu Min shook her head. "Admiral Kim Tae is maintaining communication silence. The Vorthans might get suspicious if they detect too many signals coming our way." Major Song Q appeared on the bridge, carrying tactical reports. "My teams have identified weak points in Vorthan ship designs. If they send interceptors after us, we might be able to slow them down." "With what weapons?" Engineer Cho Day asked. "We're flying a mining ship, not a battlecruiser. Improvised explosives, mining charges, anything we can rig up," Major Song Q replied. "This ship still has some of its original equipment. Those rock crushers could do serious damage if we get close enough." Captain Li Bin studied the tactical display. The Vorthan fleet remained in close orbit around Earth, exactly where they needed to be. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they had not bothered to establish a proper perimeter. Their arrogance was humanity's only advantage. "24 hours until we reach the corona," Lieutenant Ryu Min announced. "That's when things get really dangerous." Dr. Park Nari ran final diagnostics on the quantum cascade device. "All systems green. The device is ready for activation whenever—" "You give the order, Captain." "How long do we have once we start the countdown?" Captain Lee Bin asked. 60 minutes from activation to cascade initiation," Engineer Choday replied. "The device needs time to establish quantum resonance with the star's core. After that, the reaction becomes self-sustaining." "And how long until the supernova reaches the Vorthon fleet?" "Approximately 18 minutes, Dr. Park Nari said quietly. "The initial shockwave travels at roughly 10% of light speed, fast enough that they won't have time to escape." The ship's alarms suddenly started blaring. Lieutenant Ryu Min checked her sensors and her face went pale. "Vorthon interceptors. 3 destroyer-class ships moving to intercept our course." Captain Lee Bin felt his heart rate spike. They had been detected. "How long until they reach us?" 2 hours, Lieutenant Ryu Min replied. "They're not moving at full speed. Probably just investigating what they think is a civilian ship. Major, Song Q was already moving toward the weapons locker. We need to buy time. If those destroyers get close enough to scan us properly, they'll discover the quantum device." "How do we fight 3 Vorthon destroyers with a mining ship?" someone asked. "We don't fight them," Captain Lee Bin said. "We run, full speed toward the sun. Make them chase us into the corona." Engineer Choday's hands flew over his control panel. "Pushing engines to maximum output. But Captain, at this speed we'll reach the corona in 6 hours instead of 24. The radiation will kill us long before we can activate the device." "Then we'll have to work fast," Captain Lee Bin replied grimly. The last light accelerated toward the sun like a missile shot from Earth. Behind them, the Vorthon destroyers increased their own speed, closing the distance rapidly. Their advanced engines could easily outrun a human mining vessel under normal circumstances. "They're hailing us," Lieutenant Ryu Min reported. "Put them through," Captain Lee Bin ordered. The communication screen flickered to life, showing a Vorthon officer with the standard blue skin and 4 yellow eyes. When it spoke, its voice carried irritation rather than concern. "Human vessel, you are approaching restricted solar space. Alter course immediately, or you will be destroyed." Captain Lee Bin had prepared for this moment. "This is Captain Lee Bin of the mining vessel Last Light. We're carrying refugees from Earth's surface. Our navigation system was damaged during evacuation. We're trying to reach the outer system, but our course calculator is malfunctioning." The Vorthon officer looked skeptical. "Reduce speed and prepare to be boarded for inspection." "Negative," Captain Lee Bin replied. "Our engine controls are also damaged. We can't reduce speed without shutting down life support for our passengers." It was a thin lie, but it bought them time. The Vorthon destroyers continued their pursuit, but did not immediately open fire. They still thought they were chasing frightened civilians rather than a military strike team. Dr. Park Nari watched the radiation readings climb steadily. "We're entering the outer solar atmosphere. Radiation levels are approaching dangerous levels." "How dangerous?" Major Song Q asked. "Fatal in about 4 hours," Engineer Choday replied matter-of-factly. "The shielding will start failing long before that." Captain Lee Bin made a command decision. "Begin countdown sequence on the quantum device. We're not going to get a better chance than this." Dr. Park Nari's hands trembled slightly as she entered her authorization code. First code entered. Engineer. Choday added his code without hesitation. Second code entered. Lieutenant Ryu Min took a deep breath and entered the final code. Third code entered. Quantum cascade device is now active. Countdown at 60 minutes and running. The ship shuddered as it hit the first layers of the sun's outer atmosphere. Through the viewports, the crew could see the corona stretching around them like golden fire. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Vorthon destroyers are still following us, Lieutenant Ryu Min reported. "They're having trouble with the radiation too. Their shields are stronger than ours, but they're not designed for stellar approach." Major Song Q had armed every explosive device on the ship. "If they get close enough to board us, we'll give them a warm welcome." The last light pushed deeper into the corona. Radiation levels spiked beyond anything the crew had experienced. The ship's hull began to glow with heat that the cooling systems could barely handle. Warning lights flashed on every console as system after system approached failure. Hull breach in Section 7, someone reported. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but we're losing atmosphere. 30 minutes until cascade initiation, Dr. Park Nari announced. The device is functioning perfectly despite the radiation. Captain Lee Bin watched the tactical display as the Vorthon destroyers fell further behind. The alien ships were powerful, but they had not been designed to operate this close to a star. Their crews were probably debating whether to continue the pursuit or retreat to a safe distance. Captain, the lead destroyer is powering weapons, Lieutenant Ryu Min warned. They're going to try to destroy us before we can get any closer. Let them try, Captain Lee Bin replied. At this distance, their plasma cannons will just accelerate the cascade reaction. The first Vorthon destroyer fired a massive plasma bolt that lit up space like artificial lightning. The energy beam struck the last light's rear section and blew through the weakened hull plating. Half the ship's systems went offline instantly, but Dr. Park Nari was right. The plasma energy interacted with the quantum field around the cascade device, feeding additional power into the reaction. The countdown accelerated. 15 minutes to cascade initiation, Engineer Cho Day announced. The Vorthon weapons are actually helping us. The second destroyer fired its main guns, trying to finish off the human ship. More plasma energy poured into the corona around them, destabilizing the solar matter in exactly the way the quantum device needed. Captain Lee Bin felt the ship breaking apart around him, but he also felt something else: pride. His crew had done the impossible. They had carried humanity's ultimate weapon into the heart of the solar system and activated it successfully. In a few minutes, the chain reaction would begin, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. 10 minutes to cascade initiation, Dr. Park Nari said. All crew, prepare for stellar collapse. The last light was dying, but its mission was complete. Somewhere behind them, 50,000 Vorthon ships waited in orbit around Earth, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that their entire fleet was about to be consumed by the fury of an exploding star. The last light was breaking apart piece by piece as it spiraled deeper into the sun's corona. Captain Lee Bin felt the deck plates buckling under his feet, while radiation alarms screamed from every console. Around him, his crew worked frantically to keep critical systems online for just a few more minutes. Engineer Cho Day was bent over his control panel, his uniform smoking from heat that the ventilation system could no longer handle. Sweat poured down his face as he rerouted power from failing systems to keep the quantum cascade device stable. Burns covered his hands from touching superheated metal, but he never stopped working. 5 minutes to cascade initiation, he announced through gritted teeth. The device is holding together, but barely. Dr. Park Nari monitored the quantum field readings from Earth, her voice crackling through increasingly poor communications. The resonance patterns look perfect, Captain. The stellar matter is responding exactly as predicted. Lieutenant Ryu Min struggled to maintain contact with the outside world as communication arrays melted one by one. I'm picking up massive activity from the Vorthon fleet. They're finally starting to understand what we're doing. Through the bridge viewports, the crew could see the sun's surface stretching endlessly in all directions. Solar flares erupted, like mountains of fire, each one containing more energy than humanity had ever harnessed. The last light was a tiny speck falling into an ocean of nuclear fury. Hull breach in the forward section, someone reported. We're losing structural integrity fast. Major Song Q appeared on the bridge, his tactical gear scorched and his face grim. 3 of my people are dead from radiation exposure. The rest won't last much longer. Captain Lee Bin felt the weight of command pressing down on him like the gravity of the star they were diving into. 200 volunteers had followed him on this mission, knowing they would never return home. Now, he had to make sure their sacrifice meant something. Distance to optimal detonation point? He asked. 2 minutes at current speed, Engineer Cho Day replied. But Captain, I don't think the ship will hold together that long. As if summoned by his words, another section of hull plating tore away in a shower of sparks and molten metal. The ship's artificial gravity flickered as power systems failed. Crew members grabbed onto anything solid as they felt themselves becoming weightless. 3 minutes to cascade initiation, Dr. Park Nari's voice came through the static. The quantum field is building toward critical resonance. Lieutenant Ryu Min looked up from her communication station with wide eyes. Captain, the Vorthon fleet is moving. All 50,000 ships are breaking orbit and heading away from Earth. Too late, Captain Li Bin said quietly. They finally figured out what we're doing, but they can't escape the blast radius in time. Through the failing communication link, they could hear Admiral Kim Tae's voice from Earth Defense Command. Last light, this is Admiral Kim Tae. The entire planet is watching. You have made humanity proud. Captain Li Bin grabbed the communication microphone with hands that were already showing radiation burns. Admiral, tell our families that we kept our promise. The colonies will be free. 2 minutes to cascade initiation, Engineer Cho Dae announced. The device is entering final activation sequence. The quantum cascade device hummed with building energy as it prepared to tear apart the fundamental forces holding the sun together. Dr. Park Nari had designed it to create a chain reaction that would consume the star from the inside out, turning millions of years of nuclear fuel into a single devastating explosion. Major Song Kyu moved through the ship, checking on crew members who were still alive. Many had already succumbed to radiation poisoning. Others lay unconscious as their bodies shut down from exposure levels that should have killed them hours ago. Yet somehow, through sheer determination, enough people remained conscious to keep the mission going. The Vorthons are firing everything they have at the sun, Lieutenant Ryu Min reported. Thousands of plasma cannons trying to disrupt our approach. Captain, Li Bin almost laughed despite their desperate situation. They're making it worse for themselves. All that energy is just feeding the cascade reaction. The Vorthon fleet's massive firepower lit up space around the sun like a second dawn. Plasma bolts that could vaporize entire cities struck the corona and added their energy to the building quantum instability. The aliens were trying to stop the humans by doing exactly what would make the explosion more powerful. 1 minute to cascade initiation, Engineer Cho Dae said. Captain, it's been an honor serving with you. The bridge was now filled with smoke and the smell of burning electronics. Half the control panels had gone dark, and the rest flickered unpredictably. Through gaps in the hull, crew members could see the sun's surface rushing toward them like a wall of fire. Dr. Park Nari's voice came through the static one last time. 30 seconds to cascade initiation. The quantum field has reached critical resonance. Nothing can stop it now. Captain Li Bin looked around at the faces of his crew. Lieutenant Ryu Min was still at her post, trying to maintain communications, despite radiation burns on her face. Engineer Cho Dae had collapsed over his control panel, but his hands were still moving, making final adjustments to keep the device stable. Major Song Kyu stood at attention despite injuries that would have hospitalized anyone else. 15 seconds, Engineer Cho Dae whispered. Captain Li Bin activated the ship's internal communication system for the last time. All hands, this is the captain. In 10 seconds, we complete our mission. Earth will remember what we did here today. 10 seconds to cascade initiation. The quantum cascade device reached full power and began its work of destroying a star. Deep within the sun's core, subatomic particles started behaving in ways that violated every natural law. The nuclear reactions that had burned steadily for billions of years suddenly accelerated beyond all control. 5 seconds. Captain Li Bin thought about his wife and daughter in the outer colonies. They would live to see humanity become a legend among the stars. The species that chose to burn down their own solar system rather than surrender would never be underestimated again. Cascade initiation now. The quantum cascade device completed its activation sequence and sent waves of exotic energy deep into the sun's core. The star began to die in a way that nature had never intended. Millions of years of remaining fuel started burning in minutes instead of millennia. The last light finally broke apart completely as it reached the sun's surface. Captain Li Bin felt the bridge dissolving around him as temperatures rose beyond anything matter could withstand. His last thought was that they had succeeded. The Vorthon Empire's greatest fleet was about to learn what happened when you cornered humanity. In the sun's core, the cascade reaction reached the point of no return. Nuclear fusion accelerated past any possible control as quantum fields tore apart the fundamental forces holding stellar matter together. The star that had warmed Earth for billions of years began its transformation into the most powerful weapon ever used in galactic warfare. Dr. Park Nari watched from Earth as her instruments detected the cascade initiation. Her quantum physics calculations had been perfect. In 18 minutes, the supernova shockwave would reach the Vorthon fleet and destroy every ship in the inner solar system. The 50,000 alien vessels were racing away from Earth as fast as their advanced engines could carry them. But they had waited too long to understand the threat. Their arrogance had positioned them perfectly for destruction, and now no amount of technology could save them. Admiral Kim Tae stood in Earth Defense Command watching the tactical displays as the sun began to change. Solar output was climbing rapidly as the cascade reaction built toward explosion. Soon the star would release more energy in a few seconds than it normally produced in thousands of years. Cascade reaction confirmed, Dr. Park Nari announced to the command center. Captain Lee Bin and his crew have succeeded. The sun will go supernova in approximately 17 minutes. Earth's population had been evacuated to underground shelters that could survive the initial radiation burst. The planet itself would be sterilized by the explosion, but the human species would continue in the outer colonies. And they would never forget the 200 volunteers who had made that survival possible. The last light was gone, but its mission was complete. Humanity's most desperate gamble was about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever.